Hello there! Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 4, was a relatively shorter episode, at least compared to the first three, which, on one hand, makes it easier for me to talk about because there's literally less to talk about. But on the other hand, it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for me to talk about it because I honestly don't really have much to say other than I really liked it. It felt like another Kenobi episode. It felt like, I'm gonna use a video game analogy here, it felt like another level that you have to play through on your way to the big boss, the main final confrontation, which obviously is Vader. Obviously, the final duel and rematch between the two that I'm pretty darn sure they're going to have by the end of this series. So yeah, this felt like just another, you know, step on the ladder getting there. And the video game analogy here actually works really, really well, and actually surprisingly so. The more I think about it, the more it actually makes sense, because there's a lot of video game aesthetic in this level, and believe me, I mean that in the highest regard. That is the highest form of compliment that I can give this episode. It really did feel like a sort of stealth mission level that's necessary for the progression of the plot. It's nice to see Obi-Wan is trying to get in touch with his old self. It really does feel, in this episode more so than the other three, that it's Obi-Wan trying to get back to the Clone Wars era Obi-Wan that we know and love. Obviously, he's not there yet, but he's trying. You see him testing out his Force telekinesis skills at the beginning of the episode. He does several Force-related stuff in all throughout the episode, and we even see that even his lightsaber skills. Obi-Wan in the prequel era was one of the better duelists in the Jedi Order, and especially during his old Ben Kenobi from the A New Hope era and late in Rebels, he was one of the better Jedi duelists that ever lived. But he's clearly not that, and not at that stage as we see him in this episode. He's very clumsy. He almost treats the lightsaber like a metal crowbar. Like he doesn't slice through the air with the elegance and grace of a Jedi Master. He just hits things. He just smacks the stormtroopers in the chest with his lightsaber, as you've seen in this episode. Which again, it's another thing that he has to get over, another hump that he has to leap over, so to speak. But going back to the Force stuff, I love that he actually used the Force to hold back the rush of water from the broken window, which in many ways it really reminded me of Kanan's final stand from the final season of Rebels. I really like that. It shows how much Obi-Wan was able to progress with getting back to using the Force in just this short amount of time. I think I said this last time in my previous video, where Obi-Wan is seen performing tasks with the Force that normally he wouldn't much break a sweat over doing it. But because he's cut off himself from the Force for as long as he has, and it is 10 years, I did look that up, but because he has been away from the Force and hasn't been using the Force for about a decade now, he's struggling to do so. And this holding back of the water really shows how far he's gone in trying to get back and reconnect with the Force. Curiously, we didn't really get to see any scenes of him trying to communicate with Qui-Gon again. I'm assuming that's going to come back at some point later down the line. But more on Leia stuff. The more I see of young Leia in this show, the more I love it. She's really, it really does feel like this young actress that I'm currently forgetting her name at the moment. She really has captured the spirit of Leia. That, like I said last time, it really is the Leia that we've seen in A New Hope and in Rebels and in the Leia novel, just as a much younger version. Honestly, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. She was able to capture the spirit of young Leia better than older Ehrenreich did with a young Han Solo. Now, obviously, different set of circumstances, I agree, but she's nailing it so far. Riva in this episode felt a little bit disappointing. I did say last episode, that I'm really interested to learn more about her, and the more I see of her, the more I'm interested. She that doesn't really didn't really do that for me in this episode, but I like the plan of putting the tracker in Lola, and it's one of those episodes that really requires repeat viewing, so to speak, where you actually get to see where the reason why she brought Lola into her and started fiddling with her was specifically the reason why she gave her the tracker as a sort of a failsafe, just in case she escaped her. And the scene of where she's about to torture Leia was sadistic, in a good way, not in a bad way. It shows Riva's character, but in a way, it also reinforces what I said earlier of Leia's unwavering bravery in the face of imminent torture, which she has displayed several times before, or rather, she will display in A New Hope. The Star Wars timelines are a bit confusing, but regardless, I liked some of the other stuff I saw in the episode. The O'Shea Jackson Jr. character. I'm curious to see more of him. Can't remember the exact model, but it was the chips that would later be used as snow speeders in The Empire Strikes Back. It was a really cool scene, and really tragic when one of them unfortunately had to die, getting Obi-Wan, Leia, and Tala off the Fortress Inquisitores. And by the way, can we just address this? Because we have seen the Fortress Inquisitores on Nern in Jedi Fallen Order, and in that video game, which actually in the timeline takes place before this show, Cal Kestis actually escaped by breaking a window, or maybe it was Seer that did it, I can't remember, but they broke a window, letting all the water rush in, and Vader almost drowned in there, which again, the video game analogy really does work perfectly well with this level, so I even call it a level now. It works perfectly well with this episode, but like, at what point do the Empire realize that building a fortress that's like halfway submerged underwater, not a very good idea. Like, at what point do they realize that they need? I mean, I guess you can actually have a separate conversation about Imperial real estate and Imperial architecture, because I mean, the obvious example there is the Death Star, but yeah, the Empire, they like to build things that look scary and imposing, but not at all practical. Case in point, no handrails on any of the high bridge platforms. So, whatever. Regardless, like I said, really good episode. It was, like I said, it was a nice step on our journey to reach the final confrontation of Vader. Can't remember how many episodes are left for this show, but honestly, at this point, I really don't care. I'm just really enjoying the journey, and it really does, like I said last time, it really does make it feel like every single level is on a completely different planet. This time we were on Nern and the Fortress Inquisitores. It looks like next episode will be on this planet we visited with O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s character and the path. And also, another thing I have to bring up before I wrap this up, I love the fact that Bacta tanks are now effectively default flashbacks scenarios. We saw it started in Book of Boba Fett, and it seems to be continuing with Obi-Wan Kenobi, where we see Obi-Wan and Vader in the Bacta tanks separately, sort of having nightmares about each other, and I love that they're implementing that aspect into the Bacta tanks. in these Disney Plus shows. Overall, like I said, really solid episode. I like a little stealth mission, but hopefully we'll get to see some more action in the next one, which I'm assuming is going to be a very, very tragic ending for some of the characters that we got to see in this episode. Much like the one that sacrificed himself in this episode, we're probably going to see more of that in next episode when the Inquisitors will eventually track down Obi-Wan and Leia to this planet that I can't remember the name of at the moment. But yeah, that's all I can say for this episode. So until next week when I'll review the next episode, may the Force be with you. Always.
Hi there! Thank you for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.